Guys, Kendra for Legends Tomorrow, Season 1, Episode 11, The Magnificent 8, and I was really looking forward to this episode, just because I knew it was going to be really different than anything else we got, and especially after last week, I really wanted a break from the future. You guys know I don't think the show is that great when it goes in the future. I think it's kind of boring, it's very slow, and when it goes in the past, they just have a lot more fun with it, and without a doubt, this was one of the most fun episodes we've had of the show. I really enjoyed this episode. It was a lot of fun. They really stayed committed. I mean, when I say they stayed committed, we'll talk about that, definitely. You guys may be wondering how I already watched this episode. It was in Canada, it aired in Canada early, and, it got online early, so I was able to watch it that way. I watched it last night. Let's just get in this episode. There's a lot to get into, as usual, and, definitely have a lot more to say about this episode than last week's. Last week's would have been good if they just would have been a bit more ballsy, and this episode really showed what the show's capable of. So we see the Wave Rider time jumps to Salvation in 1871, and it's far enough that even Rip feels the same, feels the side effects, and Mick is basically... we see Mick is dosed through the whole thing, and Rip explains that they're in the Dakota territories in 1871, and, this is by far the, furthest they've ever been from their timeline, and he figures that they can hide out there while the hunters look for the other fragmentations. The Time Master tells the other fragmentations are blind spots in the timeline, whereas people can't see, and Ray and the others want to go exploring, and Mick agrees to keep an eye on them and assures Rip that he'll be good. But you don't really know if Mick is trustworthy at this point. I mean, we know, obviously, he was Kronos, and he has this army, so you're kind of still wondering, can we really trust Mick in this situation? You don't really know. So the team fabricates period appropriate clothing, and it's like Back to the Future 3. It really is. I love the way that was done. I actually really like Back to the Future 3. It's not it's a pretty good movie. You guys can check out my review for that. I reviewed it last year. But I actually do like Back to the Future Part 3. And this episode kind of reminded me of that. Just that got that Western feel. And I love how once we got into this timeline, just everything felt like a Western. The period between the clothing, what was going on, the way people were talking. Even the background music was changed to like a country version. It was so cool. It was very well utilized, and without a doubt, I think this was the most well use of a time period yet. I mean, I think the 50s is still the best use. Like, that was just, they used it perfectly, but this is definitely very close, because they really used the time period to their full advantage, definitely. So Rip provides suitable weapons. He explains that he'll stay on Wave Rider to plot their next move against Savage, because obviously Savage is there, just don't know where, and the team then goes into Salvation. Everyone looks at the newcomers, and obviously, they're wondering where they come from. They go to a saloon, and Mick goes to get a drink. A waitress bumps into Stein, and the others belly up to the bar. Kendra bumps into an older woman, Kate Manser, and Kendra gets a memory flash of Kate at a cabin in a valley, and when she recovers, Kendra discovers that Kate has gone. So, clearly there's something going on there. Now, we know that Kendra's been around for a while, so obviously maybe she has a connection to Kate. I was really wondering what was going on there, but I like what we found out here. So Mick tells Sarah that it's been years since he had a drink and doesn't remember how long he was Kronos, and Sarah points out that he seems to have changed but doesn't know if she likes it. Mick points out that Sarah can handle her liquor, and they end up having a drink off. Kind of a funny scene. I like the way that was done with him having this drink off. Really funny stuff. That's when the show is at its best. When the characters are having fun with each other, things like that. This was really fun, and you guys know I've really liked Mick, Sarah, and Len's interaction this season. I like seeing that. So meanwhile, Stein sits down to play some poker, and Len watches. The professor wins, impressing Len, and says his father was a gambler and taught him the game. And of course, Len didn't know that Stein had this in him. I didn't even know that Stein had this in him, that he could, gamble so well. But basically, Stein tells Len that, like father, like son, isn't always inevitable. And, yeah, that really is true. I mean, I think that he's trying to tell him that you do have some good in you. And, Len this season has been very confused. He thought he had good in him, but now he isn't sure. You can see that he's been struggling, going back and forth between am I a hero, am I a villain? And I like that Stein trying to tell him, look, just because your father is some way doesn't mean you have to be this way. Yes, it does feel a bit repeated, but I do like that, Stein does care. And again, something else I think this episode made good use of is that we got to see a lot of dynamics that we haven't seen in a while. I mean, yeah, we've had some dynamics, but it's become very repetitive as of late. You've had Sarah with Len and Mick, you've had Ray with Kendra, and you've had Jackson, Jackson Stein, things like that, Stein and Rip. So I did Stein and Ray. I like they did a little bit more with some of the dynamics, because that's when the show is a lot of fun, is when you get to have some dynamics with the characters that we didn't have before. I definitely enjoyed that. So Billy Conlon grabs the waitress, and he's the losing Rufflin. And when Stein objects, Conlon goes for his gun. Len casually just shoots him dead, which I thought was awesome. I love that. And I love seeing Len be a badass. I mean, obviously, more men stand up, don't care that Len put the man down in the fair fight. A fight breaks out, and I love the background music. It just, you felt like you were watching a Western. It was so cool. I love the way it was done. Their teammates jump in, except for Mick, who's passed out in the bar. And I like the way the episode started with Mick passed out, and then Mick passed out even more after this. I mean, just awesome stuff. Really funny as well. Just like the fact that Mick was passed out, I thought was pretty funny. One man who has remained seated the entire time finally fires a shot to get everyone's attention. He stands revealing a scarred face and says that the fight is over. Stein thanks the man who introduced himself as Jonah Hex, and yes, we do get to see Jonah Hex in this episode, which I was very happy about. Disregarding that terrible movie from like 2009. God, that was bad. The one with like Megan Fox, that was terrible. That was the thing I was most looking forward to in this episode, was seeing Jonah Hex, getting to meet his character. I do think they used him pretty well in this episode. I do think they put him in good use. I think they showed, how much of an outlaw he is, how much of a badass he is, and they did give us potential that we could see this guy again. I really did like that. I think the casting here was pretty good. As they leave, Hex asks where they're really from, recognizing them as time travelers, and asks where Rip is, because he knows where Rip is, and he knows that they're time travelers, which is very interesting. And you have to go into this not really knowing a lot about Jonah Hex, which luckily I had not seen the movie. I'd seen parts of it. I knew it was really bad, but I didn't know a lot about Jonah Hex's character, and I'm happy about that, because I didn't want to watch the movie, because I knew it was a terrible interpretation. So the team takes Hex to Wave Rider, and Rip recognizes Hex right away. I mean, we don't really know the connection that these two have. We know they have some sort of connection. Hex says that he broke a Baroom battle, and explains that Len killed a member of the Jeb Stillwater gang, and now the whole gang will tear apart the town looking for revenge, and he knows what's going to happen. So in many ways, Hex is a good ally for them. It never felt like they were just trying to shoehorn in there. It just felt like he was in this world, like he belongs in the 1870s. And yes, Jonah Hex is a Western type character. You need to have him set in the Western. I don't think they just did the Western to introduce Hex. Obviously, they wanted to introduce him to the world, but they also made him, I think, a good ally for the team. He's someone that will kill, he's someone that will shoot, and he will help them. And Rip figures that the hunters will detect the temporal disturbance and come looking for them, but the scientist says that they signed on to the mission to be heroes, and he doesn't plan on running, because a hero doesn't run. A hero, fights against their enemies, does whatever they can to take them down, and that's what they have to do. So Kendra heads off on her own. Sarah goes after her. Gideon confirms that the valley in the memory flash was Albano Gulch, and Kendra tells Sarah that she hopes Kate can help her find Carter, because she knows that Carter's here. And this is kind of annoying. Again, we're harping on this Carter situation. I get it. You want closure with Carter. Can we please give her something more to do? I'm sorry. I mean, it's not that I'm upset that Kendra is dwelling on this Carter situation, but come on, I'm over this. I really am. This was the one part of the episode that just didn't work as well for me. Everything else I thought worked pretty well, but this part of the episode I just didn't really think worked as well. Sarah offers to go with her. Kendra agrees, and can we just move on? I don't care about Kendra and Carter. I cared episodes ago. I just don't care anymore. They keep harping on it. They keep going back to it, and just stop dwelling in it. It's really annoying. So Hex and Ray then go to the Salvation Jail. Ray offers to help against the fight, and the sheriff immediately gives Ray a sheriff's badge and says he's leaving before his luck runs out. The gang kills him. Hex congratulates Ray and warns that there are a few warrants out for him. And I like the partnership between these two. Like, I think they worked pretty well together. I definitely really did enjoy that. And you can see that Hex is really trying to make Ray into that hero he's always wanted to be. We've known ever since the series started, Ray wants to be a real hero. He wants to do something significant in his life. He wants to do something, that actually makes him feel like he did something worthwhile. And, do what he wanted to do as the Atom. And you can see in this episode that Hex is really going to get him to do that. And I could kind of see Hex being like a personal trainer sort of for Ray. And I kind of want to see more of that dynamic. Even though I know that we're not going to see Hex for a while, I think he is definitely going to leave an impact on Ray after this episode. So that was the thing. This didn't feel like a random episode. Like, everyone really, it did feel like something that's going to affect them. So we see Stein goes back to the saloon, pays the bartender for information on Jeb, and the bartender says that Jeb will find the team after they killed his man, but is glad to give them directions in return for more money. Meanwhile, Stein notices a woman, Sarah Neal, at a table crying. He goes over, introduces himself, and Sarah says that her boy Birdie is dying of tuberculosis, and there's nothing anyone can do for him. And of course, Stein knows, how to fix this stuff, because of course, where he's from, and things like that, so he can use that to his advantage. Stein then goes with Sarah to her home, and Birdie says that he wants to ride a stagecoach, and the professor tells him to get better so he can do so. And I like this dynamic. I like seeing Stein actually help out a family. I like seeing him be a doctor. I thought that was really good. I definitely enjoyed that. And it did kind of show, if these characters were in this world, what would they be like today? I thought they used that very well too, because that's something that I do want to see is, if these characters were here, what would they be like? I thought it was pretty good the way they did that. So Jeb and his gang ride into Salvation. Ray steps out to confront them. The outlaw is unimpressed and points out that Ray is outnumbered and that there's nothing he can do. And as Jeb goes for his gun, Len shoots it out of his head from a sniper's post, and Ray says that he has sharpshooters all around. Jeb rides off with his men as the townspeople cheer, and Mick and Jax watch. And you can see that this is going to be very hard to fight. I mean, these are a bunch of outlaws. They don't really know how to take him out. And I like that Ray wasn't actually, able to take them out as well. I like that Hex had to give him some advice here, because we see back on Wave Rider, Hex warns Ray that once they leave, the Stillwaters will come back and Salvation will end like Calvert's, and Rip abruptly cuts off any discussion of Calvert and talks to Hex privately. And the team, and basically, he wants to know how to stop, how to stop them, obviously. That's what he wants to do. The team checks Gideon to find out what Calvert is, and the AI explains that Calvert was wiped in 1868, and we still don't really know what it is, though. All we know is that it was around 1868. This doesn't really tell us anything else, so definitely very interesting. Sarah and Kendra then ride to Albano Gulch, and Sarah admits that she enjoys the simple time. She tells Kendra that she hasn't had much simplicity in her life, and that's the thing. I like the scenes between Sarah and Kendra. It made up for the fact that Kendra was looking for Carter. These scenes really made up for it. I think this episode in general also made up for the one where Sarah was forced to train Kendra. This definitely made up for that, because you do see these two work really well together. She talks about how she hadn't had much simple stuff in her life, and Kendra says she's been having more memory flashes recently, and Kendra has another flash of Kate's cabin. She points at the direction, and the woman continue on. And we don't really know, again, her connection to Kate, but we know she keeps seeing her, and we don't know what it's all about. So, Stein is getting a vial from the med bay when Rip and Mick confront him. Gideon admits that she told them, and Stein insists that the medicine is contemporary, and Stein explains that the medicine exists in the 19th century, and unfortunately because that he can't use it here. But Ray points out that it won't be used for medical purposes for another 70 years, and the professor says that he can't turn his back on Birdie any more than Ray could turn his back on Salvation, and Rip points out that Ray is using 19th century means Stein doesn't want to hear it, and points out that Calvert was destroyed, and Rip explains that after a mission he stayed in Calvert for a while with Hex, he became subject to time drift and had to tear himself away to return to his own time. He wasn't able to get out of there. So basically, a day after he left, though, ex-Confederate Quentin Turnbull destroyed Calvert, and Rip insists that Stein can't alter the timeline and save Birdie. He just simply can't do that. The timeline is what it is. It's set in stone, and he can't change all that. And Stein tells him that he refused to live with the regret he can see in Rip's face, and I like that Stein wanted to help him. I mean, you could see that Stein wants to do a good thing. He wants to help out this boy who he knows is dying of tuberculosis. But again, as Rib is saying, the future's set in stone. You can't change this. So Hex returns with the information from the bartender, and Ray says that it's time to ride. The bounty hunter asks Rip if he's coming along, is disgusted when Rip refuses. I think Rip just doesn't want to do this on his own. Again, I don't really know why Rip didn't want to do this, but for whatever reason, you can tell that Hex does not take that much of a liking to Rip. Like, Rip is very stubborn. He doesn't really want to do this. He kind of pussies out, and we've known Rip to do this. We've known that he really trusts, them more than he does himself, and that's kind of is what's going on there, which is very interesting. So Kendra and Sarah arrive at the cabin. Kate aims a rifle at them. She tells him to get off her land, and Kendra realizes that Kate is one of her past selves, and that's how she knows her. And they go inside, because of course, as we know, Kendra and Carter have been around for years. They've been around for centuries. They've been around since, like, the 1500s. So Kate is who Kendra was in the 1800s. And they go inside. Kate shows them a sketch of her and her love, who was Hannibal Hawks in 1830, of course, that being Carter. And in the sketch, Kate is wearing a bracelet. She explains that they wore it in their first lives, and she got it from Savage when he attacked them in Jefferson City. And the couple lost the bracelet to bandits, and Kendra figures that she can't use the bracelet to kill Savage, because as we know, Kendra wants to be the one to kill Savage. She wants to be the one to do that, and Kate points out that she can kill Savage with a bracelet. It's just not going to work. She tells Kendra to stop fighting her destiny. She figures that they're doomed to repeat the same cycle of death and rebirth, and when Kate tried to break the cycle by finding another love, she discovered that he could never be her soulmate like Carter was, and fate broke them apart. Kate vowed to never do that to anyone again. She tells Kendra that she'll never be able to love anyone else, because in all their past lives, it always ends in tragedy. And Yeah, I understand. So she basically telling Kendra you can't love Ray because it's gonna end in tragedy. You can't be with anyone. It's a really sad story, but I did like that we got some context here. And like I said, at first I was upset when we were following her tracking Carter, but this really led more to us realizing that Kendra can't really be with Ray. She can't really love him because of that. And that whole thing now makes a lot of sense. In episode 9, when he said he cared about her and she said she didn't, now we know why. Because she kind of is inferior to love. She can't love. It's gonna kill her. It's going to, kill her lover, and she doesn't obviously want to do that. So, very sad, definitely, but I like that we did get some context here. It felt like exposition that we needed, and I really like that. So, the men then ride out toward the Stillwater hideout. Stein gives the drug to Birdie, and he gets better, surprisingly. He actually does get better, and he makes Sarah promise to burn the medicine once, because obviously, this is medicine that isn't available yet. Birdie fully heals, and she agrees, and Stein actually saved him, which I thought was pretty interesting, the way that Stein actually did that, but because of his persistence and not letting, what Rip said actually get to him. He actually did what he wanted to do. He was able to save Birdie, which I was very happy about. So Ray and the others ride up in the hideout and take on Jeb's men. When one of them prepares to shoot Mick, Len shoots the gun out of the outlaw's hands. Ray then knocks Jeb out from behind, places him under arrest, and as they ride off with their prisoner, one of the outlaws has managed to pull Jack from his horse. Jonah and Hex advises Ray, Len, and Mick to leave before the outlaws take them down. Figuring out that either fight to live to fight later, or die, he rides off and the others reluctantly take his advice. What I loved about this fight is that this wasn't them using their powers. Obviously, they can't use their powers because, one, it's not going to make sense. This is future stuff. It's too early in the century. They didn't really have them yet. And two, the other reason I don't think they can use their powers is mainly because they need to do this on their own. This needs to be like we want this to be like a Western, and it definitely felt like that Western feel. So back at Wave Riders, Stein suggests that they trade Jeb for Jax, and Ray points out that if they do, then Salvation is still in danger, that this isn't really going to do anything, and Jonah and Hex suggests they have a quick draw. Stein says that there must be another way, and Hex figures that Rip won't approve using their futuristic weaponry, and Ray volunteers, and when Rip objects, says they have forfeited his right to speak up when he refused to help them earlier. And yeah, I like that they called him out for this. I like that they said, look, you don't get a chance to, you don't get a chance to speak here. You didn't want to help us, so we get to do what we want. And Rip explains he had trouble leaving Calvert because of all the opportunities for heroism, and I understand what Rip is saying, that, when he tried Calvert, it didn't work for him, but as we know, not what worked for Rip is not necessarily what works for the Legends. They've kind of done things on their own without Rip, and he admits to Hex that he knew what would happen if he left. Hex slugs him, furious that he abandoned the town, and even though, he had his reasons, Hex is still really upset. I mean, he could have gotten them in real danger, and Rip says that if he had stayed, then he would no longer have been a Time Master, and now that he no longer is, Rip agrees to face Jeb in the quick draw at high noon, and as we know, he's no longer a Time Master, so now he can do this on his own, and I love that we saw that. So as Kendra and Sarah return to Wave Riders, Sarah tells Kendra that Kendra is her own person, and she has Ray, and she figures that things won't turn out the same way that they did for Kate, and basically the gain, right? And I like the way that was done. I like that she says, look, you have Ray, things are good now. But again, I think Kendra does have to worry a bit about this prophecy, because that was Kendra. I mean, yes, it wasn't Kendra now, but it was one of Kendra's reincarnations, and I think she should still be a bit worried about that. So the game rides into Salvation, finds the team waiting for him. Rip says he'll be drawing for Ray, and Len gives Jeb a gun, and this scene was awesome. I love this. I love there was a gunfight. I love that it wasn't just powers. It felt like a Western. It was awesome. The two men draw, but Rip gets his shot off first. The Outlaws free Hex and ride off, but 3 hunters walk into town and open fire as the townspeople take cover. Mick runs to greet them while Rip gives Hex his future gun. Ray is Adams to pointing out the hunters aren't concerned about using futuristic weapons in plain sight. They don't care about that. And we see Stein and Jax merge into Firestorm and attack as well. I like that they did end up using their powers here. We see that Mick attacks one of the hunters, saying that he was always on his side, and he grabs his opponent's knife, stabs him to death with it, and it shows that they can in fact trust Mick, which I was very happy about. And as the hunter dies, he says that the Time Masters have initiated a mega protocol, and that the Pilgrim is coming for them next. Because as we know, everyone in Salvation, they were in fact part of the Hunters, and now they've killed the Hunter, and now the Pilgrim is coming for them. So we don't know who this is, but I like that we still have that fear, and I like this isn't just over. There is more people to worry about. There are more, dangerous Hunters out there, and this isn't the first one. And this isn't the only one. So once the other Hunters are down, Hex prepares to ride off. Rip suggests that Salvation needs a sheriff, but Hex suggests that he's not the law and order type. He's just not that. He's above the law. He doesn't feel like he's part of the town. The bounty hunters says it'd be okay if they meet again, and rides away. And I really hope that we do see Hex again because I like his interaction with Ray. I thought it was very well done. I like we saw that. It was definitely one of the most enjoyable parts of this episode. I really enjoyed their bonding overall. They worked very well together. So Len joins, and in general, I think Ray works well with anyone. I've said this before. I think Brandon Rouch has this charm to him as Ray. They just works well with anyone. But with Hex, I mean, he really did a great job. They had a very good dynamic here, and I hope we see more of that because I really like what they did with his character in this episode, and they put him to good use. Definitely, I was worried he was going to be wasted, but luckily he wasn't. So Len joins Rip, who says that skepticism and disbelief will assure that no one will believe the townspeople if they say anything about what happened because it just doesn't seem believable. I mean, all this futuristic technology, all this medicine, they pretty much screwed up a lot of things, but, they kind of just have to leave it that way. So at the saloon, Sarah and Birdie thank Stein, and Birdie says his last name is Wells, and we kind of get this fun twist here that Stein realizes the boy is actually H.G. Wells, who, of course, wrote, like, War of the Worlds and books like that. And of course, as we know, that is Stein's, I believe, favorite author. That's who Stein really respects. Stein always talks about H.G. Wells, things like that. It was just kind of cool. I like that we saw that. It worked well for Stein. I thought that was really fun. I definitely enjoyed that we found that out. Definitely really fun. So back on Wave Rider, Ray asks Kendra why she seems off. She says that she met a woman, but doesn't have to listen to her, and they kiss, and we don't really know if this is a good thing. Should Kendra be listening to what, Kate said, even though Kendra is her own person? Does that affect her? I mean, Kate, of course, was who Kendra is now, but of course, Kendra Saunders is not the same person as, Kate. I can't think of her last name right now. What was her last name? Kate Manser is not the same person as Kendra Saunders. They're just not the same person. But does that mean they have similar qualities? I mean, obviously, same, kind of person. They'd have the similar qualities. But are they the same person? Does the same things affect them? I mean, we don't really know. And I do think this does make Kendra a bit more interesting. I do like that. So they go to the bridge, and Mick explains that the Omega Protocol means that the Pilgrim will go back into the past and kill their defenseless younger selves, which means they're going to 1990. Very different, but again, I like that they are doing something different here. It's not just the future. They're going to Central City, though, in 1990, we find out. We see the Pilgrim prepares to kill young Mick as he watches his house burn, and that's how the episode ends. So I thought this was a really great episode. I thought they used the time period very well. I thought they showed, what they could do with the Western time period. I thought that was very well done. And now we know that we are headed to 1990, and I'm looking forward to seeing what's going to happen with that, because I did hear we are going to meet Ray's wife. We're going to find out a bit more about the characters, and that's exactly what we need. We need a character-driven episode like that, and I really love that. This episode was a lot of fun, though. I thought they used it very well. I definitely had a lot of fun watching this one. Like I said, some of the Kendra stuff I'm just over. I don't want this whole harping on Carter situation, but I do like where they're taking Kendra's character, because should she be worried about what Kate said to her? I mean, obviously Sarah's saying to avoid it, but should Kendra be worried? I mean, I don't think she should just shut it down. I think this is something that she should be worried about. We'll have to see what happens with that. That's going to be very interesting. Hex and Ray, like I said, one of my favorite dynamics in the show so far. I love these two teaming up. I think they worked very well together, and I really hope we do see more of them, because they were a lot of fun to watch. I think they work very well together. I just really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, and I hope that we see more of those two. One of my favorite dynamics that we've had in the show, without a doubt, like I said, and I definitely really enjoyed it. Really good stuff there. I like that Rip is becoming less and less of a coward. Like, he's now more ready to fight. He's realizing he doesn't need to sit things out, and I like that we're seeing that, because before, Rip was sitting things out, and I understand why he had to sit this one out, because he felt that he was going to cause a detriment to the group and all these things, but he's realizing that he's not a time master anymore, which means he doesn't really need to be as worried, and he can just kind of do what he wants, which I did like seeing. I thought that was definitely really well done. I really enjoyed that. The Pilgrim. The Pilgrim, obviously, we can already tell this guy is going to be very hard to take out. We'll have to see if, what's going to happen there. Obviously, the Pilgrim's going to come after them. We'll have to see what happens with them. Are they going to be able to take him down? We'll have to see. That's going to be very interesting. I can't wait to see how that whole dynamic turns out. I like that Mick confirmed his allegiance. Like Mick said, look, you can trust me, things like that. I thought that was very well done. I really enjoyed that overall. And I'm also wondering, are we going to see Hex again? I mean, I don't think this is the last we're going to see him. They used him so well in this episode that can't be the last we see him. I mean, he was used very well here. I really love what they did with him. I thought he was a lot of fun to watch. He was funny. He was, just everything that Jonah Hex should be. This guy did. I think they used him very well. I definitely like what they did with this character. A lot better than Josh Brolin was, obviously. Josh Brolin's a good actor. The movie just sucked, really. It was pretty bad. I mean, again, I didn't see most of it, but I knew a lot of it really did. I know it really does suck. I've seen, like, parts of it. It's not very good. But overall, guys, no one you guys saw this episode. I really enjoyed this episode. That was a lot of fun. Definitely, I really thought they embraced the time period very well. I think they used a lot of that to their advantage. And like I said, Legends of Tomorrow is best when it is a fun show. And this was definitely one of my favorites of the season, without a doubt. I definitely really enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. The 50s episode is still my favorite because I think that was the one that used the time period the best and where the character dynamics were the best. But this is definitely a very close second. I really enjoyed this episode. That was a lot of fun. Let me know what you guys saw this episode. Love to hear your thoughts on it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will either be for Empire or for the Path. I don't know which one it's going to be, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.